I'm going to transport you back in time to the golden days of Garry's Mod. I'm talking about a time when roleplay servers weren't just another menu option, they were the heartbeat of Gmod. From wandering around hometown 1999 to dodging bullets in RP Downtown V2, we're diving deep into the evolution of Garry's Mod roleplay, covering the classics like DarkRP, some of its legendary servers, and even those admin stereotypes we can all laugh at. If you ever roleplayed as weapons dealer, the mayor, or even an SCP entity, this video is for you. When we talk about Garry's Mod and roleplay, there's no better place to start than LightRP. This was the precursor to DarkRP, which is the game mode that we've all spent way too many hours on. LightRP was the framework, but DarkRP, it was the renaissance of roleplay in Gmod, setting the stage for everything that would come later. Remember those early days, those incredibly simplistic Half-Life 2 textured maps like Hometown 1999 with all of its iconic shops, stores and locations, not to mention its posters, like the gym with the Arnold posters, or RP Townsend where everyone seemed to know each other with its brick buildings and narrow streets. RP Townsend captured the small town essence with a slower pace, the good old sheriff's office where players would find themselves behind bars, or that single gas station that was a central hub for trades, rendezvous and gas stops. But the reason I absolutely loved this map was for its train. Not many maps at this time had a train system like this to get around the whole map. It was just so cool. The days when a salary of $50 in game felt like striking gold, the nostalgia. And then DarkRP arrived with its myriad of jobs and opportunities, adding complexity and depth to a formula that we didn't even know needed it. It wasn't just cops and robbers anymore, now you had thieves, doctors, gangsters, each role with its unique sets of rules and duties. The game transformed overnight and the servers, they were booming. But let's not forget the maps that became the backdrop to our stories. The legendary RP Downtown and Downtown V2. Some of you might even remember the iconic little gun shop on the edge of the map where you could press the button and it just dispensed some shipments full of CSS weapons. The dark alleys, and let's not forget the sewers where so many shenanigans went down and where you'd get lost. This was before there was tons of community edits of this map. The old version was just so nostalgic. I won't dive into it in this video, but there was some pretty strange and creepy conspiracies behind the downtown map. Rumours that the crater is no longer with us and that people were seeing ghosts on the map. There's even some community edits which actually add ghosts to the map. There's a whole rabbit hole you can dive down into, but it'd be too long for this video. And then there was RP Amsterville, a map that I felt was like Downtown's more sophisticated European cousin, inspired by the architecture of Amsterdam and its canals and narrow buildings. And I can vouch because I've also been to Amsterdam. It was a whole different vibe in encapsulating that 90s and early 2000s era. These maps became a part of our DNA. Who else feels like they just opened a time capsule? Let me know in the comments below. Do you have any memories on these maps? There were a whole bunch of servers in the early Gmod that became legends, and most servers were just small tight-knit communities. There wasn't really that many big communities back then which were on a larger scale, and the player counts were a little bit lower, and the number of servers were of course lower because the player counts weren't as high as today. I remember a small server that my brother invited me back to in the day called Dave's RP. It was just one of those small ones that had a very small community where people actually just took RP seriously and had fun. It was kind of popular back in the day just to pay for server hosting to get your own Gmod server. I can't count how many times I actually had one myself. This server just ran RP Downtown V2 and even one of my favorites called RP CSC Desert on its map rotation. And there were so many of these small little servers that just ran a few basic nostalgic maps. And let's not forget about Zarp RP. Unfortunately the server isn't as big as it once was, and this one wasn't really an OG Gmod server, it came much later. But I had some super fun times on this with my friends, with stupid business names, RDM fest and trolling, and we printed a whole bunch of money on there. But DarkRP was never the only roleplay game mode in Garry's Mod. First off, let's talk about NutScript. This roleplay framework went the extra mile in terms of customization. It was a storyteller's paradise for those who are more serious RP players, with in-depth character creation and a rich backdrop for interactive narratives. It was one of those game game modes where you could set your name and your character description so people could kind of see your whole story when they looked at you. Now, if you wanted more of a darker dystopian setting, you probably frequented Half-Life 2 RP servers back in the day. This is kind of like a trend which has died now. There's not really any servers like this, apart from the odd few Russian Half-Life 2 RP servers which are just edited DarkRPs. Particularly this one was made famous by the Clockwork framework game mode. From ration cards to civil protection officers, this mode gave you a glimpse into a future that you'd never want to live but just couldn't stop roleplaying in. Then there was Cider, which was a more streamlined, lightweight roleplay framework that appealed to purists. No gimmicks, just straight up roleplay with a focus on interaction and realism. The infamous PERP, where realism met roleplay in a cocktail of unexpected scenarios. Here players could pay taxes and debate politics, and if you got hit by a vehicle or got attacked, there was a more realistic injury system. I never really played this over DarkRP because it was kind of too serious, but it was still a good game mode and had to be mentioned. And let's not forget about TacoScript, which was kind of the underdog of RP frameworks that had its own cult following. This is kind of like NutScript. It provided just enough complexity to make things interesting, but it kept it simple enough to attract newcomers. Enter DarkRP edits. Trust me, some of these are wild, and some I couldn't even include in this list, and most of the wild ones I didn't. And yes, don't worry, I won't be including those horrible ones like Pony RP. We don't talk about those. Bronies, you know who you are. Let's kick things off with World War II RP though. Ever fancied being a soldier storming the Reichstag, a Gestapo policing the streets of Berlin, or maybe a spy operating behind enemy lines? World War II RP offered an unparalleled blend of history and imagination, providing a stage for epic battles and heart-stopping espionage. But the range of these edits stretches far and wide. Remember School RP? Think detentions, locker room beatdowns, basically the game Bully Scholarship Edition replicated entirely in Garry's mod. And yes, you could even play the Bullworth map too, and some of the School RP game mode edits were super cool. And I can't forget Kingdom RP. In fact, I actually had some super fun moments on here, and most of them are captured on video on my channel. If you go back to some of the earlier years on my channel, I have a few videos on Kingdom RP. Your dreams of being a king, queen, or perhaps a blacksmith could be fully realized on here, or even a wizard or werewolf. This mode blended fantasy and feudal systems together, which created some rich storylines. I made some great friends online on Steam on the Kingdom RP servers as a teenager, and I actually was incentivized to really take roleplay seriously because it was just so different. Now here comes a personal note, Zombie RP. I actually met one of my good online friends on this mode when I was a kid like 14 years ago when I was super young. You never knew if the next corner would be full of fast zombies or survivors that'd blow your head off with a double barrel. The map Zombie Survival B5 was super cool. It was the first one with spawning zombie NPCs, tree houses, places to hide in the attic and more. And there were some pretty other cool zombie survival maps that came later for Zombie RP too. SCP-RP takes you into a world of anomalies and top secret facilities. Think keeping a city safe is tough, try preventing apocalyptic entities from breaking from their containment facilities. This mode is a whole lot of fun, and I have to say I just really enjoyed trolling on there some years ago. I actually played SCP-RP and Mexican Border RP with my brother, I think a few years ago, and you can still see those videos on my channel. Which leads us on to Mexican Border RP, where you're either border patrol or an immigrant, which kind of pushed the boundaries of what RP could be, because there's a lot of these types of controversial servers which are just littered in GMod server list. It's pretty funny though to play on because you could just escape past the border through the sewer, use props to build a way to climb over the wall, or just rob a bank in daylight and bring the money way back to Mexico. It's just kind of a wild server that really doesn't take itself seriously. Star Wars RP was pretty cool too. You had to go through the ranks as a clone trooper on a spaceship, from target practice to standing in line. This mode was kind of filled by a lot of guys on a power trip though, with the whole virtual military ranks, which is equally pretty hilarious. It's those types of servers where people who don't have social status in real life just feel the power of having some kind of status online in a video game, and they just abuse it to no end. Let's not forget about the holiday spirit though, with Christmas RP. The RP Christmas Town map on Gmod was just an absolute icon. If you wanted to be Santa or one of his elves, or just deliver presents to people, or play RP on a snowy map, this was awesome. And if you were playing Gmod after Christmas Day or just before Christmas, you could celebrate the spirit. Now back in the day, the only jobs were citizens and police, and later there were a few more like gun dealer, mayor and medic. But nowadays you have everything from stalkers to SWAT team members, and hundreds of donator jobs server owners use just to monetize their servers with. The monetization boom revolutionized Gmod. Suddenly roleplay wasn't just about the storyline, but about accumulating wealth for servers. You could buy VIP roles and get custom jobs or superpowers, or the favoritism of admins that let you do no wrong, abusing all the rules just because you paid them $5. Pay to play is definitely a thing that has plagued Garry's Mod since then, altering the dynamics of gameplay on RP. Enter Wiremod. This groundbreaking mod fundamentally changed the architecture of player bases in DarkRP, and most of us kids playing at the time had absolutely no idea how to use it, but luckily, with Advanced Duplicator, we could just go on garrysmods.org and just download saved dupes which were made by smarter players and spawn them easily, like bases for example. We're talking laser secured safes, automatic turrets, and more of those kinds of things. Wiremod upped the ante, but it also added a layer of complexity, and it slightly impacted the realism factor a little. I mean, sure, having a fizz gun and spawning props and moving them around isn't entirely realistic, but Wiremod kind of made it a little bit worse. With RP though, who can forget the admins? And it's always kind of been this way on all games. A lot of admins, just like what we said about the Star Wars RP players, are just on a superpower trip. If you have no control in real life, get some trust in a community or buy a server, and suddenly they're just like, I'm the law here, and some of them are just absolute tyrants. It's always that 13-year-old kid who just goes absolutely crazy and just jails you and throws you around. From the friendly and easily manipulated ones to the super trigger happy ones, admin abuse is a popular term thrown around in the Gmod community, and the admin stereotypes are just a hilarious thing. And sometimes you can't blame them, because if you've been an admin, some of the admin powers that you get are just hilarious to use. But with the release of Garry's Mod 13, the landscape shifted again. Newer, more shinier mods emerged, but some old ones fell to the wayside, including many of the old RP modes we mentioned earlier. This update came as a natural selection of sorts for Gamemodes, and not all survived the transition. Nowadays, Garry's Mod is just as popular as ever. It's one of those evergreen games which never really dies, despite the fact that the updates are far and few in between. And there's still a whole lot of hype as Garry from Facepunch Studios continues to work on Gmod's successor, S&Box, which I believe is scheduled to come out next year, and I'd definitely love to make a video on that. Gmod's workshop has so many add-ons in it, which just makes the game's lifespan just live forever, and the community is just never going to die on this game. And it definitely has to be on my all-time favourite games, especially for the amount of hours which I actually put in this game. What are your favourite memories from DarkRP or Garry's Mod Roleplay? What's your favourite map? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, because you don't want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching.